All right, today we're going to dive into a pretty high stakes game of political chess that's constantly being played in the US Senate. We're talking about the filibuster versus the nuclear option. And believe me, these aren't just some dusty, obscure rules. They are incredibly powerful tools that literally shape our laws, our government, and at the end of the day, our lives.
So let's just kick things off with a real head scratcher. How in the world can a minority, just 41 out of 100 senators, bring the entire legislative process to a grinding halt, especially on a bill that the majority actually wants to pass? I mean, it sounds like it defies basic math, right? But, well, that's the reality of the Senate today. The answer to that puzzle, it really comes down to one single powerful word: the filibuster. You should think of it as the ultimate legislative roadblock. It's this parliamentary trick that lets a minority party just slow everything down or, stop the majority's agenda dead in its tracks.
Okay, so here's how it works at its most basic level. The filibuster runs on one simple but really powerful idea: unlimited debate. So as long as a senator or a group of them can just keep talking and keep the debate going on the Senate floor, a final vote can never actually happen. It is quite literally a way of talking a bill to death.
And this is the magic number that makes it all possible: 60. To break a filibuster and actually force the debate to end, that process is called cloture, you need a supermajority of 60 votes. This is huge. It means to get almost anything significant passed, 51 votes just isn't going to cut it. You need 60, and that is exactly where the minority gets all its power.
Now, when you hear the word filibuster, you probably picture something straight out of a movie, right? That lone senator talking for hours and hours, reading from the phone book. That's the classic talking filibuster. But the reality today? It's a lot less dramatic. The silent filibuster's way more common. A party doesn't even need to talk. They just have to signal that they've got the 41 votes needed to block cloture. And that threat, all by itself, is usually enough to kill a bill before it even gets started.
But the talking filibuster, when it does happen, can be absolutely extreme. Just look at this. Senator Strom Thurmond spoke for over 24 hours straight to try and block the Civil Rights Act of 1957. And this is just one piece of the filibuster's really controversial history. It was used time and time again during the Jim Crow era as a weapon to kill anti-lynching bills and other vital civil rights laws. And that brings us from its very controversial past to, well, its modern crisis. I mean, just look at this chart. The difference is absolutely staggering. The use of the filibuster has just exploded. So why? It really comes down to deep political polarization. As the two parties have drifted further and further apart, there's just no incentive to cooperate anymore. And so the filibuster has gone from this rarely used emergency tool to a routine weapon of obstruction. In fact, about half of all filibusters since 1917 have happened in just the last 12 years or so.
So if the filibuster is the ultimate defensive weapon, what's the offense? Well, it's a procedure with a name that is just as dramatic as its impact: the nuclear option. This is how the majority party can fight back, basically by changing the very rules of the game itself.
So here's the crucial point. Changing the rules in the Senate normally requires a massive 2/3 majority. The nuclear option is a move that basically shatters Senate tradition, allowing the majority to change the rules with just 51 votes. And yeah, it's called nuclear because it's seen as blowing up Senate norms, and it can have some pretty serious political fallout.
And once this weapon was on the table, both parties started using it in this escalating tit-for-tat power struggle. It really kicked off in 2013. Democrats, led by Harry Reid, were frustrated that President Obama's nominees were being blocked, so they went nuclear to get rid of the filibuster for most presidential appointments. Then, fast forward to 2017. Republicans were facing the same thing with President Trump's Supreme Court nominee. So Mitch McConnell did the same thing and extended it to Supreme Court justices. And more recently, it's been used to allow for group confirmations, just to clear a massive backlog of nominees who are stuck. You see the pattern here, right? Each use just makes the next one easier.
Okay, I know, these are complicated, wonky rules, but why should you actually care? Because this power play happening in Washington has a direct and pretty significant impact on your life, on the laws we all live under, and on whether our government even works at all. I mean, really think about it. Major laws on issues you care about, healthcare, climate change, voting rights, they can be stopped cold by a filibuster. The people who become federal judges for life or who run major government departments, their fate is decided by these very tools. And that feeling we all get that Washington is just broken and nothing ever gets done,
A lot of the time, it's because these procedural weapons are being used to create that exact paralysis.
And if you want to see just how imbalanced this can get, look at this number. Because every state gets 2 senators, no matter how many people live there, the 26 least populous states, which represent just 17% of all Americans, have 52 seats in the Senate. That's more than enough to mount a filibuster and block laws that the vast majority of the country might actually want.
So, as we start to wrap this up, what we're really looking at is this fundamental tension right at the heart of our democracy. These tools, the filibuster and the nuclear option, they're really a double-edged sword, forcing us to choose between 2 core democratic values. On one hand, you have majority rule, this idea that, hey, elections have consequences, and the party that wins should get to govern. The nuclear option is all about empowering that. But on the other hand, you have minority rights, the principle that the Senate should cool things down, force consensus, and protect the minority from the tyranny of the majority. The filibuster, at least in theory, was designed to do just that. This whole debate is about which of these ideas should win out.
You know, given the constant escalation and how routine this all has become, the current situation just feels unsustainable. A lot of experts believe the filibuster as we know it is already on its last legs. So the real fight isn't so much about if it will survive, but more about what the new rules of the game are going to be.
And that brings us to the final, crucial question. And it's really a question for you to think about. What's the right path forward? Should this tool, with its really complex history of both protecting minorities and, let's be honest, obstructing progress, be eliminated completely? Should it be reformed, maybe by making senators actually have to stand up and talk again? Or should it be preserved as a vital check on the power of the majority? The answer is going to define the future of the Senate.